I dropped out of the womb and said, "Hi, weirdness."
I like that. Well, I know that whenever it comes to the subject of UFOs, there's a lot of information that you have to wade through. Reports, the National Reporting Center, UFO Reporting Center. One guy, sitting there collecting all the information. The guys on the ground getting the information from the sightings, sorting through it, filtering through what is misidentification of like stars and planes, and then there's that percentage, that golden percentage, as I like to refer to it, of stuff that just cannot be explained from credible people, pilots, law enforcement, people that are seeing these things up close and personal. It starts to make you wonder, though, then, is it military or is it truly something from another planet?
Well, I don't think those are the only two alternatives. There's several other really intriguing possibilities. It interests me that something that has never been seen on another planet. I mean, it's not like we do a lot of traveling to other planets, but we have we've taken gazillions of photos on Mars, and that was not true when I got involved in all this. Mars was the primary thought of as the most probable location that the UFOs came from. Well, if they did, they come from some remote little hamlet, because all I ever see is that rusty soil and some ice. So there may have been something on Mars a long time ago, but I don't think they're coming from there. And we've taken gazillions of pictures of the moon, and there are occasional strange lights on the moon, but I assume those are little bubbles from whatever core the moon has, or meteors, or some optical phenomenon. But immediately, in the modern era of this, which was immediately post-World War II, you go from seeing these things to saying they're either natural phenomena or they're from outer space. And yet they're never seen in outer space, they're seen here. So you go to the secret weapon theory, and that has a bizarre reverse plausibility. Let me explain that. First of all, UFOs and stories of alien visitors who have had encounters with human beings go back to the dawn of at least of civilization that was able to write and was literate, because you have stories from Babylon, Egypt, ancient Sumer, that are very much like modern encounter reports. Sure. And so it obviously wasn't the Army Air Corps that they were misidentifying, or the history of the world is very different from what we've been told, which is also possible, actually. Sure. I mean, but I do think that there was a tendency in the post-World War II era, of which I am a immediate product, to think about outer space as the alternative. The thing is that the UFOs that were seen in the late 1940s and early 1950s look very much like what were 10, 15 years ago, before the first Gulf War, essentially secret devices, but we didn't have them in the 1940s. They were developed in the 1970s, 80s, and later. Like the stealth bombers and jets come to mind. They look like the UFOs, but they look like the UFOs of 30 years before that, when we were incapable of doing anything of that sort. So maybe it's the reverse. Maybe we're copying whoever or whatever they are, their technology. Right. Or maybe, just to throw something out that I don't believe is true, but is food for thought, maybe we're seeing into the future occasionally. Time is a very, very slippery thing, no pun intended, and I think sometimes we see things out of sequence with time. In the 1890s, there were some excellent cases in Great Britain of people seeing what looked for all the world retroactively looks like World War I aircraft. Well, there were no World War I aircraft. There was no heavier-than-air flying craft at that time. But this is just before the era of the heavier-than aircraft, just before the Wright brothers. And 15 years later, nobody would have done anything other than duck if they saw military aircraft flying over, I think, the New Hebrides and in Scotland and places of that sort. But maybe they were seeing ahead in time. Yeah. Certainly there have been phantom armies that have been seen that appear to be from 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. There's a whole gazillion stories in the lore of strange phenomena of phantom armies being seen. So I'm wondering if maybe time gets out of sync sometimes, and it's hard to find words for that. But that's an interesting thought that I'll throw at you. Maybe we were seeing stealth bombers in the 1940s.
That very well could be. I mean, and that's one of the things that you have to start looking at whenever you get an incredibly detailed report of a sighting of some sort, looking at the atmospheric conditions, looking at the planetary alignments, looking at the geographical location, looking at everything involved to try and say, okay, it's like collecting evidence at a crime scene. You have to look at everything to try to come up with an answer or at least some more information to help on future investigations, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, those people who are viewing on the screen right now, you see somebody dressed up like the Pope. Actually, if you look closely, he's the fish god Alanus, and he's looking up at a spacecraft that says USAF on it. No, I'm kidding about the light. I hate to blow good cases out of the water, but something occurred to me years afterwards. There's a story, and I think it may have been my friend Brad Steiger who documented it, but I wouldn't swear to that because it's a long time ago. But apparently in 1940, someone wrote in the fresh cement on the, that's a word that Southerners have to watch. I almost said cement. Fresh cement on the sidewalk in New York City. Remember Pearl Harbor. And that was in 1940, and of course that's a year and a half too early, and it's thought to be out of sequence with time. And that really impressed me when I first read it, and then it occurred to me, hey, how many sailors in the 1930s and 40s, had a layover, as it were, in Hawaii, and had good reason to remember Pearl Harbor, that had more to do with hula dancers and whatever was going on in Honolulu at that time. And they might well have written Remember Pearl Harbor for reasons that had nothing to do with December 7, 1941. But that was just a thought that I had.
Yes. Well, that's...
To those not viewing this, it does say USAF on the alien craft.
Jimmy had to throw that up there. He's like, all right, I'm going to put USA.
Thank you. It's nice to know that others have a sense of humor about this. There are so many who don't.
That's true.
I think they kind of missed the boat on that. There's the host of one of the UFO podcasts, whose name I won't mention, who has absolutely no humor about it at all. And
a new ED Copilot executable has been installed.
This for any number of years and deal with all of these.
Starting the ED Copilot name process. Please stand by.
Stay sane if you don't have a sense of humor.
The ED Copilot process is starting.
Not everybody stays sane.
Yes.
That's part of the problem.
That's definitely
okay. 1990 BC, I think that is. Actually, that inscription is much older than that. But
well, whenever it comes to a lot of this, I mean, you're absolutely right. A lot of people, they don't have a sense of humor in any of this, and you have to stay lighthearted about it, because there are people in the field, if you will, that can make you angry. There's a lot of fighting involved in some of the things. Even in my area radio broadcasting about these subjects, there's a lot of, it's an ugly little world out there. So I try to stay about it all as possible and make it a little bit of fun, but also with lots of very detailed information as well, because, it's just easier to absorb it all, I think.
It's fascinating to me. I think, like my friend Jim Mosley says, the people involved are as interesting as the phenomena that they investigate. And some of the things that they get upset over are astonishing to me.
That's true.
I'm getting messages from space that, stop distracting me, you ancient Babylonian people.
All right, on that note, we got to take a quick break because we're at the top of the hour. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about, and we'll try and get serious here. We will. I promise. We're going to talk a little bit about Freemasonry. There's a lot of people that don't really understand all the aspects of Freemasonry. And later, I want to ask you about your predictions of sightings, by the way. We'll get into all that when we come back. Stick around, everybody. It is Monday night. And my guest tonight is Alan Greenfield. We'll be right back after the news.
That's no problem. I don't know why sometimes I get frightened. You can see my eyes, tell that I'm not lying. Look at you, you're a pageant. You're everything that I've imagined. Something's wrong. I feel uneasy. You show me. Tell me you're not teasing. I don't know why sometimes I get frightened. You see my eyes, tell that I'm not.
Do you want to dive into the bizarre world of the paranormal? Do ghosts, UFOs, or the supernatural amaze you to the point of wanting to learn more? Well then, you need BVRN, the Black Vault Radio Network. With more than 1,200 hours of on-demand talk radio, syndicated from more than 35 shows, the Black Vault Radio Network is your one-stop shop for the world of the unexplained. Check us out and tune in 24 hours a day at www.blackvaultradio.com. Again, that's www.blackvaultradio.com.
IRN USA Radio News, I'm Hope Duggar. Palestinians are hitting back at Israel and Gaza with deadly rocket fire. More from correspondent Mark Levy.
With Israeli aircraft blasting targets in Gaza, the Palestinians are striking back with rocket salvos, hitting cities farther away than before and causing casualties. An Israeli woman was killed when a rocket hit a bus stop in the port city of Ashdod, more than 20 miles from Gaza, the first victim there. Israel began targeting houses in Gaza, aiming for Hamas commanders and militants. Israel's defense minister says it's a fight to the bitter end, but Hamas remains defiant.
Transcripts of the wiretapped conversations at the center of the scandal surrounding Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich may soon be released. Federal prosecutors are planning to ask a judge next week to release some of the transcripts. The feds say the wiretaps in question capture the governor scheming to sell President-elect Barack Obama's vacated seat in the Senate. This is IRN USA Radio News.
If you're paying your credit cards with credit cards, or maybe some other crisis in your life made you fall behind on your bills, or maybe just too many bills to pay each month, well, there is a light at the end of the tunnel with Consumer Credit of America. They can help you find your way out of the debt trap and find financial freedom. They will create a debt repayment plan just for you. Consumer Credit of America will consolidate your debts into one affordable, easy payment plan while lowering the interest rates on your credit cards. permanently and protecting your credit. You can pay off your bills faster with one easy payment plan and save thousands of dollars. Consolidate your debts with Consumer Credit of America. Call now, 877-348-FREE. That's 877-348-FREE. Or visit them on the web at ccofamerica.com. Call Consumer Credit of America today and have peace of mind. 877-348-FREE. Not available in all states.
The Coast Guard has called off the search for a cruise ship passenger who disappeared during a holiday sail through the Western Caribbean. Jennifer Seitz vanished from the ship Christmas night, but her disappearance was not reported to the captain of the Norwegian Pearl until hours later on Friday morning. Spokesman Jennifer Johnson says a surveillance tape has been very important in the search.
We were able to narrow down the time in which Ms. Seitz went overboard and then pinpoint a location in which to start our search. Had we not had that, it would have made searching conditions much more difficult.
Agents from the FBI greeted the ship when it returned to the port of Miami Sunday to interview passengers and crew as they disembarked. The family released a statement saying Jennifer and her husband Raymond were on the cruise to celebrate their one-year anniversary and that there were no outward signs of trouble. Grammy Award-winning jazz musician Freddie Hubbard has died. He collaborated with such greats as John Coltrane and Sonny Rollins. Hubbard had been hospitalized since a heart attack last month. He was 70 years old. For the latest news and analysis, log on to irnnews.com.
You could be financially independent and never have to worry about money again. Hi, how in the world are you anyway? This is Andy Willoughby speaking for the 3-Step Plan. The 3-Step Plan is a business system designed to help families start their own home-based business. If you like working with people with similar family values, you'll love the 3-Step Plan. For information, go to 3stepplan.com or call toll-free 800-480-2102. 800-480-2102.
Billionaire investor Kurt Kerkorian sold the last of his shares in Ford Motor Company stock. The Wall Street Journal reports Kerkorian began acquiring 140 million shares of the company less than a year ago. Kerkorian's Tresenda Corporation began unloading those shares in October amid plummeting sales of American automobiles. The U.S. Postal Service's 2009 stamp lineup includes flashbacks from TV classics. Correspondent Sandy Kozel has this report from Washington.
Remember the I Love Lucy episode where Lucy and Ethel lose their struggle with a chocolate assembly line? Folks who grew up as television came of age will get a kick out of a 20-cent stamp the Postal Service is releasing in 2009, recalling early memories of the medium. Besides Lucy, the Postal Service's Mark Saunders says the stamps will include
Dragnet on there, Lassie, Phil Silvers, Twilight Zone, The Honeymooners, Burns and Allen, Howdy Doody, Red Skelton.
That stamp set will be released in August in Los Angeles. Sandy Kozel, Washington.
The price of a gallon of gas continues to drop. The government's Energy Information Administration reports that the national average Monday stood at $1.61 a gallon, a drop of 4 cents from last week and down $1.44 from the same time a year ago. Declining demand and cheaper crude oil are listed by the EIA as the reason for the price drop. The most expensive fuel remains on the West Coast at $1.79 a gallon, while the cheapest is $1.50 along the Gulf Coast. That price is down more than the nickel a week ago.
My guest is Alan Greenfield. I was going through some email here at the break, which I usually do, and I got this email from Glenn. He says, let's not overlook the many reoccurring earthquakes at Yellowstone National Park in the last few days. If that super volcano blows, yeah, we're all screwed. Yeah, I was talking about the weird stuff going on. You know, I have somewhere in my little bag of graphics over there a chart, basically. It shows all the major earthquakes going back from all the way from the 1960s from the USGS. All of the bars on the chart are relatively low until you hit 2001. Now, we're talking deadly earthquakes here. The bars are off the chart. I mean, they skyrocket over everything from what we're seeing in past years. It's incredible looking at this thing, looking at the information. Earthquakes? Yeah, they're definitely, I'm not going to say they're on the rise. They're at their peak, I think. Weird stuff. Then, of course, because we're talking about the strange things with our audio and stuff, yeah, I got one from Brenda out there. It says, hey, Captain Jack, just wanted to let you know that tonight's audio is all over the place. Sounds like it's double tracking or something, or maybe you speak in an unknown language. I do. I enjoy listening to your program. Maybe it's my computer. Look forward to listening. Thanks, Brenda. Yeah, our audio is it's all over the place. Like I said, 2 minutes after I take the mic, yeah, there it is. Yeah, there's the graph. There's it right here. We have it on screen right now. Look at that. Now that's just the skyrocketing bars on that graph is in the recent couple of years here, 2-3 years. It's amazing. That's scary too. Anyway, back to what we're doing tonight. My guest tonight, Alan Greenfield. Let's see if we still have Alan hanging in the wings back there. Alan, you still with us back there?
No, I'm headed for my shelter. I don't like that chart.
Yeah, that's something, isn't it? I mean, when
I would say don't buy any beachfront property in San Francisco right now. Maybe in Utah would be a good idea. Beachfront, consider it. I mean, you know, these things do build up to a crescendo, and usually it's not very pleasant. And it's only a question of time on the West Coast. I can't imagine planting myself there for great lengths of time.
Yes.
You know, there's another thing that goes on also that is fascinating, which is the History Channel, the Discovery Channel, and a number of others are doing what I expected people to do at the millennium. You know, you had the Y2K thing, but that was sort of anemic. It wasn't, it was worrying about whether computers would go razzle-dazzle. It was not worrying about whether the planet would blow up. But for the last 2 years, they've been pumping the asteroids hitting the Earth and earthquakes and ticks in Tennessee and strange diseases from monkeys in Africa and so forth. And all those things, I mean, in the real world, you know, bad things happen, and they happen occasionally. The thing is, one wonders what the fascination is with it. There was a ufologist in Britain a long time ago who called it apocalyptophilia, the love of the notion of the end of the world. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm not an optimist. I'm a realist, but I suspect that while there will certainly be devastating earthquakes here and there have been some awful ones and nowhere in the United States in recent years, not for 100 years, but certainly in other places in the world, and that the tsunami in Southeast Asia was one of the worst disasters at least in recent history, the worst in that part of the world since Krakatoa blew up in the 19th century. But things are going to happen. The thing is, you know, we are mortal creatures to begin with, and if we dwell on the worst possible things that could happen to the whole planet, maybe that sort of deflects attention from what we can do to make our own lives better and make our neighbors' lives better.
That's true.
Just a little bit of philosophy.
A lot of people are very focused on the whole 2012 scenario, which they're pushing and pushing and pushing. There's lots of different theories out there. In 2012, everything from Planet X is going to return and rip our atmosphere apart to you name it. I mean, they're out there, and people are just gravitating to it. And whenever you see it on television, especially, you have to think, okay, well, yeah, we're getting close to it. What better way of making some bucks than to highlight it, I think.
Oh yeah, one of those semi-educational channels, I forget which one, so I won't say, is doing Apocalypse Week in about a week or 10 days, and they're going to have a different destruction of the earth by fire, by meteor, by invasion, by germs, by whatever, just one night after another for 7 nights in a row. And I mean, that's certainly feeding fear. I mean, we've got some fairly real things going on in in our day-to-day world, like economic collapse, or perhaps some nut rogue nation with an atomic bomb in a suitcase. Those are much more likely, actually, than any of those scenarios. And I do have, he said, let's get serious. Okay, but I can't resist this. I meditated for a long time on the Mayan calendar. There's something that we know about Mayan civilization, which is each Mayan city put up a marker every year. That's how we know when those cities were abandoned. We don't know why they were abandoned. They weren't all abandoned at the same time. They were abandoned like one after another. And what they did was they just stopped putting up the markers. I think the guy doing the Mayan calendar, he had to stop somewhere. I think he got to 2012 and said, that's it. I quit. Wandered off into the jungle, and his descendants are out there now picking bananas.
Yes.
I mean, if it had said 1941, then there would have been a big hoo-hoo in 1941 if we knew anything about the Mayans in 1941, which we didn't. So let's say it was 2093. So, we've got time left. But he got tired at 2013. I mean, if it was written 1,000 years ago, actually it was more than that, I think. When you're chipping that stuff out of stone, you're putting in a pretty big effort. And at some point when the king isn't looking and the hatchet man who does the sacrifices isn't looking, you might want to farm bananas instead of carving out a calendar.
Either that, or maybe he just died.
Keeled over and didn't have any sons.
Got bit by a snake or something while he was sitting there. Ding, 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 ding,
my prediction, my firm prediction, is that 2012 will be followed by 2010.
Why do you say it? Why do you say it?
Nothing is going to happen that is particularly. If you've been at this game as long as I have, I've been through the harmonic convergence, which was supposed to do something. The alignment of planets in 1963 that was supposed to bring destruction. The millennial Y2K thing. Any day can be our personal day of destruction, and the planet, maybe it will survive all the way to the point that we actually will get on the ball and spread the human race out to other places and go on indefinitely and become a universal empire if we're worth that. But maybe we won't make it until tomorrow. But I can think of a lot of things like the roof of this building coming down just because of the way it's built and because the rooms tilt slightly. I noticed when I worry about that a lot more than I worry about an asteroid hitting the Earth or the Mayan calendar having an end date. And do you notice that Nostradamus he must still be alive because his prophecies change.
That's true.
I'm sounding like a skeptic here, and I hate to do it. It's just that people get so condensed and so, revved up over these things, and then it's like the early Christians. They were expecting the second coming this year, and then the next year, and then the next year, and then it became a little more distant. We'll look for it at the millennium. I mean, it doesn't do the investigation, the serious investigation of these things, any good to say with, this kind of great firmness, this is going to happen or that is going to happen, unless you have a really good reason for it. And most of these things are in the absence of a reason, not in the presence of one.
It's kind of funny, too, because there was a college student that actually put together a thesis about Nostradamus, and he wanted to show how a lot of his writings are so cryptic. I mean, you could get just about anything you want out of them, really, as far as your interpretation of what is actually being said by Nostradamus. So he wrote this prediction in the true form of Nostradamus, very cryptic, and even put his name to it to show. Somehow it got released on the internet. And after 9/11, people started heralding this writing supposedly from Nostradamus as, he predicted 9/11. It turns out that it was written by a college student, so, just to show how cryptic things can be. And he wasn't even writing anything specific about a particular event. I mean, he wrote it before 9/11. So, but it was just what was written in it could be interpreted as, Nostradamus predicted 9/11. It's kind of silly.
Well, the short-lived spin-off from the X-Files, the Lone Gunman, which I thought was very funny. I mean, their pilot show, that you know about this, but a lot of people don't, because it was not a successful program, but it clearly showed a plane on automatic, which is what some conspiracy theorists say, loaded with people headed for the World Trade Center and narrowly averting it. And that program came out in January of 2001.
Yeah.
Now, but on 9/11, my wife woke me up and said, World Trade Center just got hit. And I said, bunch Arabs, and went back to sleep, because after I wasn't being cavalier about it. I just expected that there would be another try for the World Trade Center. It didn't really take Einsteinian mathematics to figure out it's a great big target. It is the center of world trade, and they've already tried to blow it up once.
Yes.
So, it's just a question of what they're going to do. Truck or, win another truck.
Right.
the Ryder truck, which is what they used the first time, or they get, I didn't expect a specific, but I certainly, it doesn't take a psychic to predict that that's anything you put up on that site, you're asking for that to be a target.
Right. One of my listeners, she goes to all these different, sci-fi conferences, and where a lot of the actors from television shows like the X-Files and Lone Gunman go to, to sign autographs and talk to people and everything. And she had a chance to sit down with a couple of the guys from the Lone Gunman. And she asked him about that. She said, what do you think about your pilot episode being, so, almost predictive of 9/11 just a few months after your pilot episode? And she said that they looked at each other. They looked at her and basically said, we don't remember doing that. We don't remember what that pilot episode was about. They said to her. And she's just like, really?
I don't blame them.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
In fact, I wonder if the person we were talking about, the student thesis, whether he got investigated or not for Al-Qaeda connections. I mean, we went through a period of national paranoia, where we were seeing terrorists under every carpet, but I suspect that would put him on a list, because, but it's not an illogical guess. It's just one of those. It's one of those possibilities that would have been there.
Well, a lot of people believe that the Illuminati is the ones that are really controlling all the inner workings of the world, pulling the strings, and there's some theories that are quite believable, actually, whenever you start looking at the information, the way it's presented, and a lot of people connect it to Freemasonry. What can you tell us about Freemasonry?
Okay, it's the hardest part of talking about Freemasonry is Freemasonry 101. But for those watching on the video, there have been a number of U.S. presidents, particularly in the early days, but throughout history, all the way up through, not on the chart, Gerald Ford, who were Freemasons. And in fact, the Federalist Party, which is largely responsible for the American Revolution and both the Declaration of Independence, well, no, not so much the Declaration of Independence, but certainly the Constitution and were Federalists and were also Freemasons. George Washington was a prominent Freemason. In fact, somewhere in your collection there, you will see a very famous portrait of Washington's farewell to his troops. And if you manage to find that, it's very interesting because there's a Masonic secret. I'm going to get shot for this. So I'm going to reveal it anyway. It's Washington's farewell to his troops. He's actually doing, no, that's Cagliostro. He's more my kind of Mason, decadent, Egyptian Rite Masonry. So there's one that shows Washington, and he's embracing a soldier.
Oh, there we go.
With other soldiers. Yes, okay. Now look at how they're standing. To those who can't see it, it's Washington embracing in a sort of an odd stance one of his soldiers. And the name of the painting, which is the original is in color, is Washington's farewell to his troops, the occasion of his retirement as general of the Continental Army. What he's actually doing is the five bonds of brotherhood, which is done by embracing a person in a certain way, and there's a little catechism that you say back and forth while you do that, which is an integral part of the third degree of all kinds of Masonic rites. There are variations of it. An organization with which I was at one time associated has 7 bonds of brotherhood, but it's essentially done in the same way. And so this is both farewell to his troops and saying most of his immediate officers were members of a military